Hello and welcome to Connect and Collaborate. I am Alex Hopkins, your on-air producer. Today and all week long, we have been talking real estate. And before I introduce you to our guests, I'm going to ask our audience members out there to please sign up for our newsletter at cobrt.com. Be sure to like and subscribe our YouTube page while you're here watching, and check out other radio and podcasts on our radio page, and check out our events page while you're on there as well. But I'm going to go ahead and introduce today's guest. I have Wyeth Jackson, who's a realtor for Coldwell Banker. How are you, Wyeth?
Wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for joining me. So, as I mentioned, we've been talking real estate all week, and I'm getting lots of information, which is really exciting. But I wanted to start with you here on talking about the current state of the market.
Yes.
Yeah. So, as we know, we had a little bit of a drop in the bubble in 2008, or I guess bubble, right? Let's talk a little bit about bubble first. Are we in a bubble currently?
So we are not in a bubble currently. That's the great news, and I just want to ameliorate any worries that people have about not wanting to get into the market because they're concerned we're going to hit another iceberg and go down again like we did during the Great Recession.
Yeah.
That was a very unusual situation, and a lot of what happened during the Great Recession in the real estate market was brought on by easy access to home loans, to very subprime, lower qualification level loans, which got a lot of people into homes who would not otherwise have qualified, and then we had economic trouble, and all those weaker loans began to fail. Our current market in Colorado and in the Denver metro area, we don't have these subprime loans going on. We have very well qualified buyers who are bringing large down payments amounts. We also have a very strong cash buyer.
Yes, market.
Yep, going on in Denver right now. And so most of the homes being purchased are being purchased with larger down payments, and they have equity. Mm-hmm. So they're not as teetering like we had during the, these zero down. I personally, in the early 2000s, bought homes with subprime mortgages. High interest rates, zero down payment, no doc loans. Those were some of the...
What does no doc loan mean?
They were not good loans. I personally was able to receive some, so I remember this whole process. So it meant no tax returns. You don't have to prove you have a job. Yes. It was very easy money.
That's okay.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing in the early 2000s. Yep.
Yeah. Well, and no wonder there was such a crash, right?
Yes.
Because if you're offering money to people that don't necessarily have jobs,
yes,
there's nowhere to pay that off.
Right. So what if that person then has a financial hardship, and then it's very easy to lose the home? And then when the home has no equity because I bought it 0% down, what happens when I lose my job and I stop paying my mortgage? It's not easy for me to sell the home, and then I'm more likely to default. Okay. So we're in a very different market now. Strong borrowers, lots of cash buyers, a lot of equity, and I actually went to a couple of interesting economic summits this year. The Leeds School of Business, which is out of the University of Colorado, they gave us a very favorable economic outlook here in Colorado. They said our economy is very diverse. Obviously, we have some of the lowest unemployment in the entire country, mm-hmm, and we're not centralized in just one industry, where if that industry crashed, the whole state goes under. So they see us continuing to have inbound migration, continuing to have jobs, and we're behind in our building permits. We're behind in the housing inventory to cover all these new households that are being created each year in Colorado.
Which is a good problem to have, really.
Which is a great problem. We're a very strong state, so we're very lucky that we live here in this time.
Yeah. So, okay, let me ask you a few questions. Well, I just lost my pen there. Few questions. Thank you. As a first-time buyer, right? I'm getting advice from people all over the place, and one of my big concerns as a first-time buyer is not having enough for that down payment. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the loans for putting 0% down still mm-hmm. exist, but are you saying that's not necessarily a good idea? And obviously I'm not as competitive now in the market, right, in the marketplace to buy a home.
And there are not many zero down payment loans available. There are FHA loans, which are just 3.5% down. If you qualify for a VA, that is a 0% down option loan, but you would have to be VA eligible, obviously. Yeah. And there are some grants and bond programs that we have here in Colorado, CHAFA, CHAC, to help first-time buyers with the down payment. But most first-time buyers are bringing the down payment, whether they are just, saving up themselves or whether they have a family member gift. But 3.5% for an FHA would be typically the lowest down payment we would see.
Okay. Well, and so this, I guess, this is my issue, right? Mm-hmm. Because I don't feel like I have enough for down payment, and even if I do the 3.5% or find something to get the assistance, the issue is that I'm not competitive, right? Mm-hmm. So what else can I do on other aspects, right? To make myself look like a good buyer.
So other things we're seeing in the market right now would be people are trying to write contracts that really give the sellers what they're asking for. So maybe the seller wants to close sooner. So can you structure your offer for a very quick closing? It's very common in today's market that, especially if the seller is moving from house A to house B in Denver, now they're a buyer also. Maybe they're also having a little trouble finding their home. And so they'd like to have a little extra room, a little extra time to move. So they'd like to close with you and then have a week or two or a month, what we call a rent back, to stay in the home before they have to go to their next home. That's something that a lot of buyers are able to provide. If you have some flexibility, if you have a month-to-month rent, or you're staying with family, or you have a place you could stay where you close and then still allow the seller to stay in the home for a period of time. What I would call more sophisticated ways to do the contract, which is maybe not great for a first-time buyer, would be to offer to waive inspection. But you would need to be a very experienced, I know it's not really, I don't like that recommendation for first-time buyers.
Absolutely.
Another option is to do a pass-fail inspection, to say, so let's say I'm going to be a first-time buyer, I'm going to commit to trying to find a smaller, newer property, maybe a very small condo, but something built a little newer, so it's perhaps less likely to have inspection items versus some fabulous mid-century home in the Highlands, which who knows what's going on.
Yes.
So I could say I would offer a pass-fail inspection where I'll state in the contract I'm not going to ask the seller to fix things. I'm just going to do my inspection, and if there's something too extreme from my comfort level, I'll terminate, or I'll just move forward and accept that the outlet doesn't work, or the leaky sink needs to be fixed, or a little grout needs to be, sort of minor maintenance items.
Right.
Another sort of, this is challenging, especially for young buyers, but another thing that we're seeing a lot in this market is because we get into bidding wars, the price on the property can get bid up higher than the possibly appraised value. So then what happens? Some buyers are saying, if the appraisal comes in below the contract price, I will bring X amount cash to make up the difference. Not an unlimited amount. Some buyers might say, I'll bring $1,000, or $2,500, or $5,000, or it can be quite a bit more.
Yeah.
But again, for young buyers, that involves coming up with more out-of-pocket money, and so it can be challenging and a bit of a barrier. But I encourage people even to put up $1,000 towards that, because it shows goodwill for the seller and gives them a little peace of mind.
Yeah.
And they're trying to also capitalize on the market. We're all, each individual, whether we own a home or are trying to buy a home, we're just trying to make the best deal for ourselves. So sellers aren't, malicious in any way by trying to get a higher price. They're just trying to make the most of their own investment for themselves. Just like buyers, we're trying to make the most for our investment. So.
Exactly. Yeah. So one of the things, I was looking at buying a home a couple of years ago, and so I went through some interesting things, and one of Something that I was asked to do was, because there were so many people bidding on a house, they asked us to write a letter to the seller. Is that's, I feel like that's maybe a relatively new trend, or maybe it's something that's been happening and I just didn't know about it.
I think it really has emerged in this, we're in a once-in-a-lifetime seller's market, in my opinion, in Denver, a really intense seller's market. And as we've emerged into that, the buyer, sometimes we call them love letters to the seller, are becoming very, very common. And so it is nice to try to have some emotional connection. Home buying is a very emotional process. Even when we tell ourselves it's going to be all business, I'm going to only make smart business decisions, it's still a very emotional experience. And sellers feel very emotional. Homeowners, we feel very emotional about the homes we live in and we own. So it's just another technique to try to make a connection, personalize, make it less impersonal. If the seller has 6 offers, who are all these people, So if a few of them have written a letter trying to say, oh, I saw your home and I saw the, veterans display, and my father was also in the Army or the Marines or whatever, and trying to make connections with people, and you have little kids and I have little kids, and it doesn't hurt. Can't hurt, might help.
Exactly. Yeah, I found that one to be super interesting when I was looking at on the market, and it was something that I hadn't thought about before, but we did not get that house. Apparently what I had to say wasn't compelling enough, but
it can be. I just had a funny conversation with one of my wonderful buyers where they were up against competing offers, and one of the other competing offers unfortunately had one of those low appraisal balances. So this other buyer was offering $10,000 in cash in the event the appraisal didn't come in. And my buyer, who was not able to do that, said, but we wrote a letter. And I said, and that letter is worth at least $10,000 to me. So I,
right?
My heart goes out to everyone. It's a tough market. I sometimes try to talk to buyers about, because it's so interesting. 10 years ago, when I was working during the recession, we were on a complete flip. It was an intense buyer's market 10 years ago, and I very sadly sat at the kitchen table with many sellers who were losing their homes. They'd lost their jobs. They had, horrible medical situations, and they were crying. And the buyers were being very aggressive, trying to get a better deal on the home. And I told the same thing to those sellers. I'm like, no one's malicious. They're just trying to get the best deal. And right now we're in an unusual buyer's market, and here we are 10 years later in an unusual seller's market, and no one's doing anything wrong. We're all trying to make the best go of it we can, right?
Absolutely, for sure. So let's talk a little bit about, one of the questions that I think you might hear a lot, or one of the things that I think you might hear a lot from first-time buyers, is having this lack of knowledge of what terms mean, right? Within the market. So some terms that we throw out: fixed versus variable loans, and 30-year mortgages. Like, what can I do? Can I, if I decide that Denver isn't my home?
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's important for all buyers to start with a very reputable, competent loan officer to explain these things very patiently. There are a lot of different loan options out there, and each individual is going to decide what's best for them based on their own personal financial situation. So what I encourage people to think about is, right now our prices are going up, especially in the entry level, the smaller homes and the less expensive markets. Prices are still going up. Let's see, in the first quarter of 2018, they were up 11% over 2017. So we've been seeing extremely steep, like for the last, I think, the last 4 or 5 years, we've been seeing about an 8% value gain year over year. So if you bought as a first-time buyer, if I'm out shopping and I say to myself, well, I love watching HGTV and I have this list of things I really want in my home, and then as I'm shopping, I'm like, oh, I can't afford all those things today. I think the question is, maybe I should just wait until I can afford those things, or should I buy, compromise a little bit to get in on the market and then gain these equity steps for the next year or two? We're not predicted to be in a bubble. Again, the Colorado economy, based on our local experts, is going like gangbusters. We will eventually have a slowdown, but it's going to be a few years out, and if I bought a home as a first-time buyer today, gained equity for the next 5 years, even if I only gained equity for the next 2 or 3 years and then plateaued for a year or two, aren't I still making money? Aren't I still ahead if I sold and moved to Wisconsin or Florida or wherever I was going? You are. So I encourage people to get into the game sooner. And if you don't move to Wisconsin, then you'll have made your equity. You'll be able to sell the first property, which isn't your dream property, and move up to your next property.
Right. And that's, I think, one of the issues that a lot of people have when they go into buying their first home is that they want it to be their dream home. And I think stepping back from that reality or from that dream a little bit is better in the long run, right?
Well, it's realistic. And I have owned a lot of homes, and I remember going through the same process. Some years back, in fact, it was right before the recession, I went into a sold a larger home and downsized into a smaller property, into a townhome, and said, I feel like I'm let my finances get away from me. I'm going to downsize, reduce my debts, pay things off, get myself to a better position. And I'm going to do it in 2 to 3 years because I don't like living in this smaller place, and I want to just be climbing my social ladder up to these bigger and bigger houses. And at the time, I agonized over it because it seemed like, 2 years? This is going to be horrible. That's such a long time. Well, I ended up being there 6 years, let me say. And now that I'm a few more years down the road, it wasn't that bad. It was a very inexpensive place to live. It happened to be in Lakewood, close to the new Belmar.
Yeah.
Yep, shopping, restaurants. It was a really fabulous location. There were so many great things about it. And by stepping back, I made money when I sold. I saved up more money for that down payment to go on to the next property, and it really worked out great. And I just had to personally overcome my fear of, what if I'm going to be stuck in something? What if I dislike it so much that it's going to ruin my life? No, it's just a smaller home. It was great.
Yeah. Well, right. And you can wrap your head around that a little bit. And speaking of homes and buying multiple, right? What's the average time that people spend in their homes?
That's a great question. So, another reason that economists are saying that our market is so tight, the inventory is tight in Denver, is that, again, coming out of the recession, sellers in the Denver metro area are staying in their homes an average of 10 years.
Wow.
That our local market, people are not moving as frequently, and this is contributing to our lack of inventory. I meet with people all the time who say, Wyeth, I think I've got a pot of gold in my home, my equity's gone up, I think I could sell and I'd have all this money to buy my dream home. And the problem is their home has gone up in price, and then the dream home has gone up in price too. And maybe there aren't very many dream homes to even look at because our inventory's down. So I have a lot of what I jokingly call love it or list it sit-downs with my clients where they're saying, well, if I did sell and I'm still staying here in Denver, maybe I won't find what I want, or maybe I can't afford what I want, so maybe I will stay and I will remodel my kitchen instead, or I will do that fabulous pool in the backyard, or whatever thing I'm planning on doing. And I think a lot of people are doing that right now.
Well, and investing in your home means better return in the long run anyway, right?
And you can write off HELOC interest, home equity line of credit interest, if you spend it on an improvement on your home. They made some changes in the new tax law, but you're allowed to still write off that interest. Of course, consult with a tax professional.
Yes.
But you're allowed to write off that interest if you're improving your residence. So
wonderful. Let's talk a little bit about Coldwell Banker, right?
Yes.
I've had a slew of people on. I've had people in commercial real estate. I've had people in. I had just in the last segment, I had a loan officer for mortgages. So let's talk about Coldwell Banker. It's one of the names that people really recognize,
yes.
right?
Oh, yes. We are absolutely the top real estate company in the Denver metro area and in Colorado. We're part of a national brand of top real estate firms all over the United States under NRT. We have fabulous training. We have the best marketing. We have the best, we have offices all over the city and all over the state. And as a member of Coldwell Banker, you can stop in anywhere, meet with clients, use any of the equipment. It's just a great company to work for.
Yeah. Well, and I noticed here we have some awards if we want to talk a little bit about that.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I've been in business about 16 years. Started before the recession and then got to experience that point of the market. And now I'm experiencing this wonderful seller's point in the market. Last year, I was inducted into the Coldwell Banker International President's Circle. I'm also a global luxury agent and a luxury home marketing specialist. I do work with sellers and buyers in every price point, from the one-bed, one-bath condo up to a multi-million-dollar estate. So
you've got a wealth of knowledge all across the board.
yes, yes. And I am actually known for, within my own client base, as specializing in properties for people involved in motorsports. So I have a lot of clients who are looking for acreage, who have RVs or trailers or rigs or storage needs, garage specialty needs, parking needs. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I bet. That's exciting. So do you have a favorite in the market that you work with?
Well, I love working with first-time home buyers because they're so excited and so appreciative. That's always a treat. I also love working with people who are looking for big properties to put a dirt bike track on and looking for large, I have outbuilding builders, and we're talking about constructing large garages or just additional structures. I don't know. It's hard to pick.
Yes. Well, I would imagine it is hard to pick. And being in the field for 16 years, as you said, which congratulations.
Thank you.
That is exciting to be in a field for that long. So on the other side, is there something that you actually don't care to deal with? I don't want to put you on the spot or make you call anything out.
No.
But there's definitely got to be some rough parts of the real estate world, right? That maybe it's really boring.
I think the challenge is guiding people who are sort of putting the cart before the horse. So the exciting part of real estate is looking at beautiful properties and going to open houses and going to model homes. And the sort of more grinding part is the getting all your paperwork together and talking to the loan officer. And so I just try to be very firm with my buyers that they have to do that hard work first. No different than if you wanted to go buy a car or get a student loan or anything else. We need to know what we're qualified for first before we make our list. Otherwise, there could be a disconnect and the client could end up disappointed. So
yes, so definitely recommended, and you are not the only one to recommend that.
Yes.
Is to definitely see a loan officer first.
Yes.
See what you qualify for, because I would love to live right in the heart of Denver in a storybook home.
Yes.
Right off of Montview. There's some beautiful houses down that way.
I agree.
Yes. But I realistically know that I cannot afford that.
It's fun to go to open houses there.
Absolutely. Yeah. For sure. Right? And eat the cookies?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you ever run into that issue where you have people that you know are not going to buy, but...
Oh, but no. That's not a problem.
Okay.
Neighbors sell homes. I want everyone to come to the open house because even if they're not in the market for a home, they might talk it up to their coworkers, their friends, their family, and the next thing you know, one of those people is coming to look at it. So, no. We want everyone to come. It's fabulous.
All right. Good to know. Well, I appreciate you coming in, Wyeth. This has been enlightening.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely. Where can people find you?
WyethHomes.com. Wyeth Homes Real Estate at Coldwell Banker. I'd love to work with everyone. You can certainly find me on Instagram, Facebook. I'm all over social media. If you just Google me, all of my contact information is all over the internet. I'm very easy to reach.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
And be sure to like and subscribe our YouTube page. Have a wonderful day.